Greetings of peace and love, everybody. My name is Ram Hotep, broadcasting on behalf of the number 13 signsastrology.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This particular episode, I want to talk about, everybody wants to know, like, what's the big deal with this whole government shutdown thing and this whole raising the debt ceiling situation that's going on with the government. And I don't really get political. I don't get too political on this channel. This is more of a spiritual channel, and I share a lot of light when it comes to, ETs and information like that. So this particular episode and segment is going to be coming like kind of from that angle, that perspective. The thing with the government shutdown, like everybody, they have to always address this and kind of like set the stage for this type of video or whatever when I get to talking about aliens, because like I can't just go straight into it. I can't go straight into it because of the fact that a lot of people, they always want to chalk you off as being crazy or insane or demented when you're talking about some aliens or whatever. So I'm going to have to gradually walk you into this one. And the thing is that the government is basically manipulated, let's say manipulated, by extraterrestrial civilizations. Most of these civilizations don't directly intervene. A lot of times they don't directly, like, say for instance, you're not going to see a reptilian come out and directly interact with you. All of this is done through like third parties, what I call third parties. So like the government has been, getting influenced by extraterrestrials for a minute. That's been going on for a minute or whatever. So a lot of things that take place when you talk about government, and this is why I can kind of like sometimes talk about politics, is because a lot of things that take place with government and politics are being influenced by astral beings, higher beings. It talks about in the Bible a time when the kingdom of God would come to this particular planet. As you know, I talk about in a lot of my videos how this is Satan's planet. However, it talks about in the Bible that one day God's kingdom, or the Most High's kingdom, will come on earth, like as above, so below. So where I'm getting at is that the extraterrestrial things that are playing out and the events that are playing out in the cosmos and that have played out in the cosmos are going to eventually come here. And it's basically, when you talk about the heavens and the cosmos and all of that, you're talking about, in God's kingdom, you're talking about essentially a kingdom of different extraterrestrial groups. Whether you're talking about the Pleiadians or Syrians or the Andromedans, or no matter what you're talking about, all of this is playing out in the heavens. So essentially all of these extraterrestrial groups are in the heavens, and they say that one day the heavens will come to the earth. And the earth is ruled by government. The earth is ruled by law. So when I talk about extraterrestrial information, don't think that this isn't relevant to government and economics and politics and things of that nature. I'm not a politician. However, this information it weaves itself into different facets of society. So I have to just kind of like lay a foundation and kind of like let that be known before I get deeply into this episode or whatever. So, but what I really came to talk about is the government shutdown and what's that about. And really what it is it's a war going on between two extraterrestrial groups. And the war has been going on. Whether you call it, it changes names all the time. The Desert Storm, the war in the Middle East, the attack on Syria. But the whole thing is, it's the same war, and it's been going on over and over again. And there's two extraterrestrial groups fighting over the Middle East and Africa. It's all about the Middle East and Africa, because this is the duat, or the 0 point reference. Africa and the Middle East in particular is actually the place that the Anunnaki, when you talk about them coming down, this was a launching pad. So this was the place that they came down at, and it's a lot of underground cities, a lot of buried cities up under the Middle East. And this is what they're fighting over, because they want to get those artifacts to get the missing information from the Anunnaki because we really haven't discovered everything about the Anunnaki. See, that's the thing, like we really haven't discovered all of our history. And whoever gets this history first, whether it's the beings that are helping Russia or whether it's the beings that are helping the USA, or whether the beings that are helping Russia and the beings that are helping the USA are the same beings. You never know. I mean, I can get into this type of information, but I won't do it here on YouTube. But not really trying to talk about who's helping who. My thing is just to let people know that this whole government shutdown is a direct effect of this war that's going on. Silent war. You don't see it. I mean, many of you go to work every day, come home, you're like, what war? I don't see no. It's right here on your soil. No, I don't care where you're at in this world. This is a global war that's taking place between a couple different extraterrestrial groups, but really some groups are just observing, recording. You have another set of groups that are fighting against another group. So you got different groups out there. You got some groups that are up under other groups, so they may have to side with one group or side with another. So that's what's causing the government shutdown. The thing is that humans are kind of in the middle of this, and humans are very dependent on government, not knowing that government is dependent on these extraterrestrial groups, because they need what? Information, the new information to keep the government going. So they get a lot of this information from what you would call, some people say it's creativity or genius or whatever, but when you get deep into this government stuff, they do rituals to call on these different beings so that they can get more ideas. So for them, getting ideas isn't just going in a room and locking yourself in a room and thinking. They doing deep rituals so they can get a 50-year idea, a 100-year idea, an idea to becoming immortal. See, most people that get in the government get in it because they want to discover how to become immortal. Because once you get into government, it's like a rank. You get in the government, then you get introduced to the extraterrestrial groups. And you can't really get introduced to the extraterrestrial groups unless you have influence in a certain arena. So this is why they get into government. And they want to get introduced to the extraterrestrial group so they can learn how to become immortal. So what I'm saying here is that the government shutdown essentially can definitely be avoided. Doesn't have to really affect you as an individual, but it will affect a lot of people. I mean, I have like a prophecy and a prediction. One thing that I know is going to happen is that a lot of you are going to be turned into zombies. Why? Because a lot of people are dependent on government and the state to exist. And many people think that that's the way. Like, you're supposed to depend on government. That's what the government's here for. When the people created government. And the only reason why government exists is because of the people. So if you want to, like, not to be affected by this government shutdown, is to become less independent on government. If it does get shut down or whether it doesn't, because then they're going to go into the debt ceiling thing, and you know, people talking about all of these different the stuff with the healthcare and all of that. The way to avoid all of that is like first you got to study and definitely have knowledge of how the world works and know what you're in. Like when you're in an industry, you should know everything about that industry. For instance, I started a website, and when I started this particular website, I didn't know everything about the computer industry. So therefore, I, suffer a few setbacks. And it's my fault because I have to continue to study. You have to know everything about the particular industry that you're in. So what happens is that people, they get involved in things and don't realize how things work. And then, 50 years later or 20 years later, they're in a bad situation. And the thing is that you never, when you work a job or when you work for someone else or whatever, it's cool to do that, but that was never supposed to be a permanent thing. Because if you study human nature is, we're supposed to depend on one another. True indeed. We're interdependent. However, human nature has an independent side. And as man and woman unfolds, and as they unfold like a flower or whatever, and as they blossom, they have to become more independent. That's what it's all about. Like, if you're not independent, if you're dependent on something, dependent on some form of I guess you could say a system or some type of economic base or some group or organization, whether it's a fraternal organization or whatever it is, like you're dependent on something, that's fine. However, you need to know how that works so that you can graduate and get out of it. That's the thing. Like, if you don't never know how your industry works, like if you don't know how the hospitality industry works, you're never going to graduate and move up. So your ability to move up is to your ability to know how things work. So the whole government shutdown thing is that if you don't do that and you don't figure out how things work and you don't become independent, what's going to happen is that they're going to turn a lot of people into zombies. They're going to turn a lot of people into zombies. What I mean by that is that it's going to be walking zombies. It's already happening because the people are going to become slaves to government. What I mean by that is that they're going to be dependent on government. to the point where they're like drones. Like, you know, they're going to be lined up at a free store trying to get food and just things like that because people are looking up. Like I always talk about how the reptilian and the lizard looks up. So people are looking up at and to other people or whatever and waiting on independent on them. And like I said, we're all interdependent. True indeed. However, I'm saying the way that we're functioning right now is that you have a small amount of people that are basically ruling over a large amount of people. So you have a large amount of people that are dependent on a small amount of people, and that's never good. That's never good because you take that small amount of people out of the equation and you're left with a bunch of Indians, a bunch of people with no system and no government, and that's what's getting ready to happen. And that's going to lead to a lot of people becoming zombies and depending on the state for food, and the state's not going to be able to feed you organic veggie food because they like, well, if we got to feed you, we have to do that, then we're going to give you, bottom line, you know, we're going to give you a pill that gives you all your nutrients. We're not going to give you any food. So that's what the state's on. The state's like, or, you know what I'm saying, the government or whatever, they don't have to give you optimal so-called sprouted bread or, you know, like the best bread, the Ezekiel bread. They don't have to give you that. They're going to give you, you know what I'm saying, some cheap white bread. You know what I'm saying, that costs $1 a loaf. They're going to give you Wonder Bread. You know what I'm saying? So the government's not going to give you the best, and they should. So what's going to happen is that society is going to become more of a prison. Like in society, like it's going to be more of like a industrial complex. And the thing is that the reason why that's going to happen is because of the people. That's what you have to remember. It's not this group or whatever making you be like this. It's the fact that if you're going to depend on this group, this is how you're going to have to live because you're dependent on another person to feed you or whatever. So the government shutdown and all of that is directly tied into turning a lot of people into zombies. A lot of people are going to be walking around up and down the street. I'm serious. It's already happening in certain major cities. I do a lot of traveling. A lot of people, I'm sitting here right now watching some people looking like zombies. They're going to be walking up and down the street looking like zombies, like drones, like non-thinking beings. So the way to avoid all of this is not to, I mean, you can go out here and protest about the government shutdown and things of that nature, but it's to know more. I always tell people to know more about government in respect to your situation, so you can see how this is going to affect you, and then you solve your problem that way. So like if you're a barber in the barber industry, the government shutdown may affect you one kind of way. If you in, say for instance, the healthcare industry, the government shutdown may affect you another kind of way. So it's up to you to become more dependent on land. See, that's the thing, like you have to become more dependent on what grows, comes out of the earth versus what, you know, dependent on the water and dependent on something that's volatile, something that's always changing or whatever. See, like the way I teach people economics is that you could have 1 foot on land and 1 foot on water, because as a more it's a pamphlet. It's the Moorish questionnaire, and it's a picture of Noble Drew Ali, and he has 1 foot on land, another foot on water. There's a reason for that. That's dealing with the economic situation. So if you want to master this whole government shutdown, you're going to have 1 foot on land, which means you're growing your food, and you have a way to sustain yourself from the land. What I mean by that is it comes out the land, and you have 1 foot on water. The water is the commerce. Water goes into, many of you heard me say this a million times or whatever, that goes into the way our commerce society runs or whatever. So you have to have 1 foot on water. So the banking system runs off of the water, because water piles up in a bank. So you have to have a vessel or a ship to do business on the water, which means you have to have a way to do business on water. You have to have a way to do business on the land. The way you do business on land is knowing about the laws of the land. The way you do business on water is being in good with the bank. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down. I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents about the government shutdown and the government, and how do I feel about it, and how can we get out of it. The ultimate solution is to know more. Once you know more, to implement your knowledge and to remain dependent yet interdependent. Yet interdependent. So not independent to the point where you're a ruler and a dictator and a tyrant. However, at the same time, you want to depend on, you know, your fellow brothers and sisters, or you might want to depend on another tribe. You might want to do business and set up a treaty with another tribe. So this is when we become interdependent. However, each tribe has to have ranks. And the ranks are based on what you know. And the only way you're going to get out of this zombie thing that's coming, because the zombie land is coming. It's coming or whatever. Like, and if you're dependent on government, You're not going to be able to get the right food. You're not going to be able to get the right health care. You're going to start getting, people are going to get sick a lot quicker, and people are going to become zombies that's in the water. You're going to be drinking the bad water. See, that's how it really starts. It starts with the water. You know what I'm saying? The food is one thing, but the water that most people drink, they drink the city water because we can't really afford good water. Or you drink bottled water that's cheap, like the Dustani water made by Coca-Cola, and all these different waters that are made by Coke. This isn't real water. They're tricking you. They're making this water in laboratories, playing with the molecules. They're creating their own water. It's not coming from a spring. So it's just stuff to think about. If you want to get out of this situation, you got to know more. Grow your food. 1 foot on land, 1 foot on water. Peace.